What's the most nuclear thing you've done over something petty? I ordered a phone case from Amazon and it never showed up. The tracking said delivered, but my doormat was empty. I figured maybe the delivery guy messed up. Then my new headphones vanished. Then my mom's birthday present, always marked delivered. Never at my door. I wasn't the only one either. My neighbor Jim had lost vitamin supplements and workout gear. Eliza down the hall was missing textbooks for her nursing program. We all started talking about it in the elevator one Tuesday morning. The only person who never complained was Ivy in 4B. She just smiled and said how lucky she was that nothing ever went missing from her doorstep. Ivy was one of those people who seemed too friendly. You know the type. She'd corner you with stories about her 3 cats and always wanted to know what everyone was up to. She worked from home selling essential oils or some pyramid scheme supplements and was always there, always watching through her peephole, always smiling that fake smile that never reached her eyes. I decided to test my theory. I ordered a cheap pair of socks and watched my door through the peephole. Sure enough, 20 minutes after delivery, I saw Ivy creeping down the hall. She looked both ways like a cartoon burglar, then snatched my package and scurried back to her apartment. My blood was boiling, but I needed more proof before I could do anything. Over the next month, I documented everything. I set up a hidden camera disguised as a plant near my door. The quality was crystal clear. I caught Ivy stealing from me 3 more times. Jim twice. Eliza 4 times. She had a whole system down to a science. I showed the videos to my neighbors. Jim wanted to call the cops immediately, but I had a better idea brewing. See, Ivy had gotten comfortable and sloppy. She thought she was untouchable. I wanted her to know exactly how it felt to be violated, to have something you were excited about ripped away from you. I spent a week preparing my special delivery. First, I bought a GPS tracker small enough to hide in the padding. Then I got the strongest craft glitter I could find, the kind they use for professional displays that sticks to everything and never comes off. I mixed it with invisible UV powder that shows up under black light for weeks. Finally, I rigged a spring-loaded mechanism that would explode when the box was opened. The package looked expensive. I made sure the label said it was from a high-end electronics store. I even added a fake invoice visible through the clear window, showing a $2,000 camera lens. I paid extra for signature-required delivery, then signed for it myself, so Ivy would think it was something really valuable. I placed it by my door at exactly 3 p.m. when I knew she'd be watching and waited. Ivy took the bait in 12 minutes flat. I watched through my camera as she grabbed it and practically ran back to her apartment. I gave her an hour to open it, then knocked on her door with Jim and Eliza behind me as witnesses. Ivy answered, covered head to toe in purple glitter. It was everywhere. In her hair, her eyebrows, her nostrils, even stuck to her teeth. "What do you want?" she snapped, trying to act normal while sparkles cascaded off her with every movement like a demented fairy. "I think you have something of mine," I said, holding up my phone showing the GPS tracker location blinking right inside her apartment. Her face went white under all that glitter. "I don't know what you're talking about." That's when Jim spoke up. "We have videos, Ivy. Months of videos of you stealing from every single person on this floor." She tried to slam the door, but Eliza stuck her foot in the gap. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Give us back everything you stole and pay everyone back for what you can't return, or we call the police right now with all our evidence." Ivy broke down crying, claimed she had kleptomania, said she couldn't help herself, that it was a mental illness. We didn't buy her sob story, but we gave her a choice. Return everything she stole, plus pay everyone back for what she'd already sold or used, or we'd press charges. She chose option 1. Her apartment was like a hoarder's paradise of other people's lives. She had everyone's packages organized by apartment number in her spare bedroom, some still unopened. My headphones were there, Jim's protein powder, Eliza's expensive textbooks, even stuff from neighbors who had moved out months ago. We made her return every single item and write checks for anything she'd sold or thrown away. The glitter bomb worked better than I'd planned. For weeks afterward, Ivy sparkled everywhere she went. The grocery store, the laundry room, the lobby. Everyone in the building knew what she'd done. She tried everything to get it off, but that industrial-grade glitter was permanent. She moved out a month later in shame. I thought that was the end of it, until last night when I was taking out the trash and found something that made my blood run cold. A manila envelope tucked behind the dumpster with my name on it. Inside were photos of me from the past month, at work, at the coffee shop, through my bedroom window, and a note in familiar handwriting that said, "Glitter washes off. What you did to me won't." I spread the photos across my kitchen table with hands that won't stop shaking. The envelope sits empty beside them, my name written in block letters across the front. There are 12 photos total. Me walking into the coffee shop on 3rd Street wearing my blue jacket. Me sitting at my desk at work, visible through the office window. Me in my apartment at night, the angle showing I was watched from outside. The note sits in the center of everything. "Glitter washes off. What you did to me won't." I recognized the handwriting from all those times Ivy wrote apartment numbers on misdelivered mail and left them by the mailboxes. My stomach twists as I pick up the bedroom photo again. The quality is grainy but clear enough to see me reading in bed 3 nights ago. I grab my phone and lock every window in my apartment, checking each one twice. The deadbolt on my front door gets turned and checked 3 times before I text Jim and Eliza to meet me in the hallway right now. Jim arrives first in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking worried. Eliza shows up 2 minutes later with her hair in a messy bun, still wearing her scrubs from her nursing shift. I hand them the envelope without saying anything and watch their faces change as they flip through the photos. Eliza's hand goes to her mouth when she sees the bedroom window shot. Jim's jaw tightens, and he looks down the hallway toward where Ivy's old apartment used to be. We go back into my apartment, and I lay everything out on the kitchen table in the order I found them. The coffee shop photo has a date stamp from 2 weeks ago. The work photo is from last Monday. The bedroom photo from 3 nights ago. We spend the next 2 hours going through each picture, and I write timestamps on the backs with a marker so we can track when Ivy took each one. Jim picks up the bedroom photo and walks to my window, holding it up to compare the angle. His face goes serious and he points at the alley behind our building. She was standing down there in the dark, probably on top of the dumpster to get high enough to see through my 4th floor window. My skin crawls thinking about her out there watching me read, watching me change clothes, watching me sleep. Eliza suggests we call the cops right now, but I want to wait until morning so I can talk to Steven first. He's been the building manager for 15 years and knows how to handle stuff like this. We put all the photos back in the envelope, and I seal it in a plastic freezer bag because I've watched enough crime shows to know about fingerprints and evidence. First thing next morning, I knock on Steven's door at 8 a.m. with the bagged envelope under my arm. He answers in his bathrobe, looking annoyed at the early interruption, but his expression changes fast when I tell him what happened. We go into his office and I spread the photos across his desk. He picks up each one carefully by the edges, examining them without touching the surfaces. When he gets to the bedroom photo, his face goes from concerned to seriously worried. He asks how long ago Ivy moved out, and I tell him it's been a month since the glitter bomb incident. Steven nods slowly and reaches for his phone. Steven calls the police non-emergency line while I'm still sitting in his office chair. He explains the situation to whoever answers and gives them my information. They tell him an officer will come by within a few hours to take a report. Steven hangs up and promises to pull the building's security camera footage from the past week. He says he'll save it all to a drive and keep it locked in his desk until the cops come to review it. I thank him and head back to my apartment to get ready for the police interview. My hands are still shaking as I make coffee and try to eat breakfast, but nothing stays down. Detective Blair Hernandez arrives around noon, and Steven calls me down to his office. She's in her 40s with short dark hair and sharp eyes that take in everything. We sit in Steven's cramped office for over an hour while she takes notes in a small notebook, asking me detailed questions about everything that happened with Ivy. I walk her through the package thefts, the glitter bomb, the confrontation, and the forced restitution. She nods as I talk and doesn't interrupt. When I finish, she sets down her pen and looks at me directly. She says this is definitely concerning and they'll open a case file, but I need to understand that stalking cases require documented patterns of behavior. The legal process moves slowly, and restraining orders aren't automatic. She advises me to install cameras, document everything, and call 911 immediately if Ivy shows up in person or makes any direct threats. I feel my hope deflating, but I nod and thank her for being honest. I take the afternoon off work and drive to my office to talk to Carter, my manager. His office door is open and he waves me in when he sees my face. I feel embarrassed explaining the whole situation to him, but I know I need to tell someone at work in case Ivy shows up here. Carter listens without interrupting, and his expression stays calm and supportive the whole time. When I finish, he immediately picks up his phone and calls building security downstairs. He gives them a description of Ivy and tells them to watch for anyone matching it and to alert him immediately if she tries to enter the building. He also suggests I park in the covered garage instead of the street lot from now on. I thank him and head home, grateful my job is being supportive instead of treating me like a problem. That evening, I go to the hardware store and buy blackout curtains for every window in my apartment. The stick-on window alarms cost $30 for a pack of 6, and they shriek at 100 decibels if anyone tries to open a window from outside. I install them on every window, testing each one to make sure they work. Then I move my bed away from the window to the opposite wall where nobody can see me from outside. I check all the locks on my doors and windows, then check them again 20 minutes later. Then again 20 minutes after that. Finally, I force myself to stop and sit on my couch, but my heart won't stop racing. I search online for therapists and find Rafaela's office has an opening for tomorrow afternoon. I book it even though I've never been to therapy before and don't know what to expect. The next day, I sit in her comfortable office with its soft lighting and explain everything from the beginning. The package thefts, the hidden camera, the glitter bomb, the confrontation, and now the stalking photos. Rafaela listens without judgment, taking occasional notes but mostly just paying attention. When I finish, she asks how I'm feeling about everything. I admit that part of me feels guilty for escalating things with the glitter bomb, that maybe if I'd just called the cops from the beginning, none of this would be happening. She nods and says we'll work on that, but first we need to focus on keeping me safe. A week passes with no new incidents. I'm jumping at every sound in the hallway and barely sleeping more than 3 hours a night. Every car that drives past my window makes me check the cameras. Every footstep in the hallway makes me look through the peephole. Then I go down to check my mail one morning and reach into my mailbox to grab the stack of envelopes. My fingers touch something stuck to the inside top of the box. I pull my hand out and see a single purple glitter fleck taped to my finger with clear tape. It was positioned perfectly, so only I would find it when I reached in. My whole body goes cold as I realize Ivy has been here, in my building, touching my mailbox. I run back upstairs and call Detective Blair immediately. She picks up on the second ring, and I tell her about the glitter while pacing my apartment. Detective Blair asks me to bring it to the station that afternoon and schedules a follow-up meeting for the next morning to discuss options. When I arrive at her office the next day, she has my case file open on her desk and gets straight to the point. Getting a temporary restraining order requires showing immediate danger, which is hard to prove with just photos and a note. The glitter in my mailbox helps, but judges want to see direct threats or physical confrontation before they issue protection orders. She tells me to document absolutely everything with dates and times, avoid any contact with Ivy no matter what, and call 911 immediately if she shows up in person or makes direct threats. I leave feeling frustrated that the legal system moves so slowly when someone is actively stalking me. Back at my apartment, I spread the bedroom photo on my kitchen table and study the angle for the 100th time. The way my bed is positioned and the height of the shot means she was standing elevated somewhere outside. I grab my keys and head down to the alley behind the building, where I find the dumpster sits directly below my bedroom window. I climb on top and sure enough the angle matches perfectly. She was standing right here in the dark watching me sleep. The thought makes me want to throw up, but I force myself to focus on solutions instead of fear. I text Steven asking permission to install motion sensor lights in the alley, and he responds within minutes saying yes and offering to reimburse me for the equipment. I drive to the hardware store and buy 2 commercial-grade motion lights with bright LED bulbs, plus a weatherproof camera that connects to my phone. It takes me 3 hours to install everything myself because I refuse to wait for an electrician. The lights are positioned to cover the entire alley, and the camera points directly at the dumpster with a clear view of my window. I test the system by walking through the alley, and my phone immediately alerts me with a video clip of my own movement. At least now I'll know if she comes back. The next evening, I'm making dinner when Jim knocks on my door looking uncomfortable. He tells me he saw a car idling across the street last night around 11, with someone sitting in the driver's seat just staring at our building. He watched for 20 minutes before the car finally drove off, and he managed to get a partial plate number. I grabbed the incident log Detective Blair told me to keep and add Jim's observation with the date, time, and plate information. The log is already 5 pages long, and it's only been 2 weeks since I found the photos. Jim mentions he's been more careful about checking his surroundings too, and suggests we both start varying our routines. 2 days later, Steven sends an email to the entire building calling an emergency meeting in the community room that evening. I show up to find most of our floor there, plus several people from other floors looking annoyed about being summoned. Steven stands at the front and announces a temporary policy that all packages must be brought inside immediately by residents, with no leaving anything in the hallway even for a few minutes. He explains there's been a security situation he can't discuss in detail, but everyone needs to be more vigilant about not letting strangers into the building. Then he mentions he's ordered secure parcel lockers for the lobby that should arrive in a few weeks, and residents will get individual codes for pickup. A few neighbors nod approvingly, but others grumble about the inconvenience. I avoid eye contact with everyone and leave as soon as the meeting ends, feeling slightly better that the building is taking this seriously. At work the next morning, I meet with Carter in his office and explain I need to talk about a personal safety issue. He closes the door and listens while I give him the abbreviated version about a former neighbor stalking me and the police being involved. Carter doesn't ask for details he doesn't need, but immediately picks up his phone and calls building security downstairs. He gives them a description of Ivy and tells them to watch for anyone matching it and to alert him immediately if she tries to enter the building. Then he suggests I park in the covered garage instead of the street lot from now on, which requires a special access card he can arrange. He also offers to adjust my schedule so I can come in late and leave early to avoid predictable patterns. It's embarrassing needing special treatment like this, but I thank him and feel grateful my job is being supportive instead of treating me like a problem. 3 days later, I'm sitting at my desk when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. I open it and see just a purple glitter emoji with no words. My hands start shaking as I screenshot it immediately, then forward it to Detective Blair with a message explaining what it is. I block the number and sit there staring at my phone with my heart beating so hard I can hear it in my ears. The fact that Ivy has my cell number means she's been more thorough than I thought. Detective Blair calls me 20 minutes later and says she's having the tech unit try to trace the text. I spend the rest of the day jumping every time my phone makes any sound. The next morning, Detective Blair calls with bad news. The text came from a burner phone app that's basically impossible to trace because it routes through multiple servers and doesn't require real user information. She suggests I change my number, but I tell her I'm worried that will just make Ivy angrier, and then I won't know when she's trying to contact me. Blair agrees that's a valid concern and says to keep the number but document any messages I receive. That afternoon, I'm Googling information about photo evidence when I discover that printing photos leaves metadata in the file if they were digital first. I take the bedroom photo to a coworker who's good with technology and ask if he can check the file. He examines it for 10 minutes using some software I don't understand, then tells me whoever printed this was smart enough to do it from a public library computer that doesn't keep user logs. Another dead end, but at least I tried. My therapy appointment with Rafaela is that evening, and I walk in feeling completely exhausted. She notices immediately, and we spend the session working on grounding techniques for when I feel panic rising. She teaches me a method where I name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. We also create a safety plan with specific steps to take in different situations, like if Ivy shows up at my door, or if I see her in public. Then Rafaela gently points out that my guilt about the glitter bomb might be making me feel like I deserve this harassment, which is something I need to work through. I hadn't thought about it that way, but she's right that part of me feels responsible for escalating things. She reminds me that what Ivy is doing now is her choice and her responsibility, regardless of what happened before. Over the next few days, I notice Eliza isn't responding to my texts as much and seems uncomfortable when we pass each other in the hallway. She gives me tight smiles and hurries past instead of stopping to chat like she used to. Finally, I ask Jim if he knows what's going on, and he admits Eliza told him she's worried about being called as a witness if this goes to court. She doesn't want to get more involved because she's afraid of Ivy targeting her too. I understand her fear, but it still stings to lose her support when I need people on my side. That Thursday evening, I leave Rafaela's office around 9:30 and drive home through empty streets. I park in my usual spot and climb the stairs to my floor because the elevator makes too much noise at night. My key slides into the lock but won't turn. I try again, jiggling it, but something feels wrong inside the mechanism. I pull out my phone flashlight and look closer at the keyhole. There's a weird crusty residue around the edges that looks like dried glue. My stomach drops. I try the key one more time, but it's completely stuck. I call the emergency locksmith number posted in the building lobby, and they say someone can come in 2 hours. I end up sitting in my car in the parking lot with the doors locked, jumping every time headlights sweep past. The locksmith finally arrives at midnight and examines my lock for maybe 30 seconds before shaking his head. He tells me someone jammed super glue into the mechanism on purpose. He has to drill out the entire lock cylinder and install a new one, and the whole time I'm standing there in the hallway watching him work, I keep looking over my shoulder. He hands me 2 new keys and a bill for $200. I pay it even though it hurts my budget because what choice do I have? Inside my apartment, I check every window lock twice and barely sleep. The next morning, I call Detective Blair and explain what happened. She sounds tired but takes down all the details and says she'll add it to my case file. Then she suggests something I hadn't thought of. She tells me I should file a public records request for any patrol logs near my building to see if officers noticed anything suspicious. The request will take weeks to process, but it's another piece of documentation. I spend my lunch break filling out forms online and emailing them to the police department records division. Every piece of paper feels like a tiny shield I'm building around myself, even though I know it's probably not enough. That weekend, I can't stop thinking about Ivy and where she actually lives now. I spend hours searching online, digging through business registries and public records databases. Finally, I find her Essential Oils business registration. It lists a mailing address across town in a commercial area I've never been to. It's probably not where she actually lives, but it's the first concrete location I've found for her since she moved out. I screenshot everything and save it to a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. Monday morning, I meet Detective Blair at a coffee shop near the station and show her what I found. She looks impressed and asks if I want to try serving Ivy with a restraining order petition at that address. I didn't know you could do that. She helps me hire a process server, some guy named Ethan who does this kind of work professionally. Over the next 2 weeks, Ethan tries 3 separate times to deliver the papers to that address. Each time he finds the office space completely empty with dust on the windows. He talks to neighbors in the surrounding businesses, and they all say the space has been vacant for months. Another dead end. I pay Ethan his fee anyway and add his report to my evidence folder. Then on Tuesday night, I'm scrolling through social media before bed when I see that Ivy posted something new. It's a long rant about toxic people who ruin lives over mistakes. She doesn't name me specifically, but it's obviously about our situation. She talks about being persecuted and how some people never forgive. The comments are full of her pyramid scheme friends telling her to stay strong. I screenshot the entire post and all the comments before she can delete them. Then I spend the rest of the evening going through every privacy setting on all my accounts. I remove any photos that show where I live or work. I change my profile picture to something generic. I make everything private or friends only. It takes me 3 hours and by the end I feel exhausted and violated all over again. Wednesday afternoon, my mom calls sounding worried. She tells me she got a weird phone call yesterday from someone claiming to be from my bank. They asked her security questions about me, trying to verify my identity for some supposed fraud investigation. My mom thought it was strange and didn't answer any questions, but she's concerned. My blood goes cold as I realize what's happening. Ivy is trying to social engineer information from my family. I spend the next hour calling my mom, my dad, and my sister to explain the situation. We set up a passphrase system so they'll know it's really me calling if I ever need to verify something. The phrase is purple elephant because it's random enough that nobody would guess it. I feel sick knowing Ivy is targeting my family now. Thursday morning, Jim texts me to come to his apartment right away. When I get there, he shows me his mailbox. There are 3 purple glitter specks stuck to the inside of the metal door. My heart starts pounding. This isn't just about me anymore. Jim looks scared in a way I haven't seen before. We knock on Eliza's door and she's reluctant, but finally agrees to come with us to Stephen's office. The 3 of us sit in his cramped office that smells like old coffee and explain everything that's been happening. Stephen takes notes and his face gets more serious with each detail. He says we need a coordinated safety plan for everyone on our floor. That same afternoon, Stephen sends out a building-wide email. He announces that he's fast-tracking the parcel locker installation and it should be ready within a week. He outlines new protocols about not letting strangers in the front door and reporting suspicious activity immediately. He includes the non-emergency police number and encourages everyone to call if they see anything concerning. The response is mixed. Some neighbors reply, all saying they appreciate the safety measures. Others send passive-aggressive messages about drama and overreaction. One guy on the second floor writes that we're making the building feel like a prison. I try not to let the negative responses get to me, but they sting. Over the next few days, I start varying my route home from work. Instead of taking the same streets every time, I switch it up randomly. Tuesday, I take the highway exit. Thursday, I go through downtown. Friday, I loop around the park. But twice, I notice what might be the same car Jim saw. It's a dark sedan, maybe blue or black, and it seems to be behind me for several blocks before turning off. I can't be certain it's following me. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but I write down the times and streets in my incident log anyway. I get partial plate numbers both times. The first 3 letters are JKM. I'm starting to feel crazy, like I'm seeing threats everywhere. But I know documentation is the only thing that will help if this goes to court. Monday morning, I bring my incident log to Detective Blair's office. She takes the partial plate numbers and says she'll run them through the system. 2 days later, she calls me back with news. The plate comes back to a rental car company. She explains that rental companies won't release customer information without a warrant, and judges won't issue warrants for this level of harassment without more concrete evidence. She sounds sympathetic but frustrated. I can tell she wants to help, but her hands are tied by the legal system. I thank her anyway and add her report to my evidence folder. The folder is getting thick now, full of dead ends and almosts and not quite enoughs. That night, I can't stop thinking about the glitter and decide to check something. I dig through my storage closet until I find the old doormat I threw away after replacing it with a new one. I spread it out under my kitchen light and immediately spot 3 tiny purple specks stuck in the fibers. My hands shake as I grab the UV flashlight I bought for checking the original glitter bomb powder. Under the black light, the specks glow the exact same bright purple as the glitter from my trap. Ivy must have kept some of the glitter to use against me. I bag the doormat in a plastic evidence bag and label it with the date and time. This proves she's been planning her revenge for a while now. The next morning, I text Eliza asking if she's willing to help with a written statement about the package thefts. She doesn't respond for 6 hours, and I'm about to give up when my phone buzzes. She agrees to write something down, but makes it clear she won't testify in person if this goes to court. I meet her in the lobby that evening, and she hands me 2 pages describing the textbook thefts and the confrontation at Ivy's door when we found all the stolen packages. Her handwriting is neat and detailed. She included dates and specific items that were taken. At the bottom, she signed her full name and wrote her apartment number. It's not perfect, but it's something solid. I thank her, and she just nods before heading back upstairs, looking uncomfortable about the whole thing. I scan the pages and email them to Detective Blair, who replies that written statements can help establish the history of conflict, even without in-person testimony. 3 days later, Carter calls me into his office, looking more uncomfortable than I've ever seen him. He closes the door and tells me HR received an anonymous complaint, claiming I've been harassing a former neighbor and creating problems at work by talking about personal drama. My stomach drops. I know immediately this is Ivy trying to mess with my job. Carter asks me to explain the entire situation from the beginning. I spend 20 minutes walking him through the package thefts, the glitter bomb, Ivy's move out, and now the stalking with photos and threats. He takes notes the whole time and his expression gets more serious as I talk. He asks if I have documentation, and I pull up the police reports on my phone. He photographs the screen with his own phone for the file. The next day, Carter calls me back in for a formal HR interview. This time, he has a laptop open and types as I speak. He reviews all my documentation, including the police reports and the photos Ivy took of me. He asks specific questions about whether I've contacted Ivy since she moved out and whether I've discussed this situation with coworkers in a way that could be considered disruptive. I answer honestly that I mentioned it once to a coworker when explaining why I needed to change my parking spot. Carter closes his laptop and tells me he's concluding the complaint is retaliatory and there's no basis for disciplinary action. I'm keeping my job. But he notes that the optics are difficult and suggests I keep personal issues private going forward to avoid any appearance of impropriety. I agree, even though it stings that Ivy managed to create problems for me at work anyway. That night I barely sleep. Every sound in the hallway makes me jump. At 3 a.m., I wake up to someone rattling my doorknob hard enough that the whole frame shakes. My heart pounds so hard I can hear it in my ears. I grab my phone and dial 911 while running to the bathroom. I lock myself inside and pull a kitchen knife from the drawer I keep in there now. The dispatcher tells me units are on the way and to stay on the line. I sit on the bathroom floor with my back against the tub, listening to the doorknob rattle for what feels like forever, but is probably only 30 seconds. Then it stops. The silence is somehow worse. I stay in the bathroom for 20 minutes until the dispatcher tells me officers are at my door. I unlock everything and let them in. 2 officers search my apartment and check the hallway, but whoever it was is long gone. They take a report, and I show them my camera footage, but it's not helpful. One officer goes down to Steven's office to pull the building security footage, while the other stays with me taking notes. When the first officer comes back, he says the hallway camera angle doesn't show my door clearly. The footage just shows a dark figure in a hoodie walking past. You can't see a face or any identifying features. They give me a case number and promise to send the report to Detective Blair. After they leave, I wedge a chair under my doorknob and don't sleep the rest of the night. Detective Blair calls me the next afternoon after reviewing the police report. She adds the door-rattling incident to my file, but admits the evidence is still not enough. The camera footage is too unclear, and there's no proof it was actually Ivy. She sounds frustrated on my behalf, but explains that circumstantial evidence makes it hard to move forward with charges. I feel like I'm screaming into a void. Everything keeps happening, but nothing is enough to stop it. That Thursday, I have my regular therapy appointment with Rafaela. I walk into her office and immediately start crying before I even sit down. I'm exhausted in a way that goes beyond just lack of sleep. I tell her I can barely function anymore. Every noise makes me jump. I check my locks obsessively. I'm scared to go to work and scared to come home. She hands me tissues and waits until I calm down enough to talk. We spend the session working on distinguishing between reasonable safety measures and hypervigilance that's making me sick. She explains that my nervous system is stuck in constant threat mode and I need to give it breaks or I'll burn out completely. We create a structured sleep routine with specific times for checking locks and then forcing myself to stop. She teaches me breathing exercises for when I feel panic rising. It helps a little, but I still feel like I'm barely holding it together. 2 weeks later, the process server finally gets some good news. A judge-approved alternative service by certified mail to Ivy's business address and her last known residence. It's not ideal since we don't know if she actually checks those addresses, but it means the restraining order hearing can move forward even if she keeps dodging the process server in person. The certified letters go out on a Friday. Now we just have to wait for proof of delivery. I spend that weekend creating a massive binder with everything I've documented. I print out the timeline I've been keeping on my computer. I add printed copies of all the photos Ivy took of me. I include screenshots of the text message with the glitter emoji. My incident log goes in with dates and times of every suspicious event. I add the statements from Jim and Eliza. I organize everything with colored tabs and page numbers. By Sunday night, the binder is 3 inches thick and weighs several pounds. It feels like the only control I have over this nightmare. Having everything in one place makes it feel more real and less like I'm losing my mind. Monday morning, I walk out to my car to drive to work and find a note under my windshield wiper. Just a plain piece of white paper folded in half. I open it with shaking hands. 2 words in block letters printed from a computer. Drop it. I take photos of the note from every angle before touching it. Then I put it in a plastic bag and drive straight to the police station. Detective Blair meets me in the lobby and takes the note to have it tested for fingerprints. She calls me 2 days later with bad news. The note only had smudges, probably from gloves, no usable prints. But she adds it to my file as another incident. The evidence folder keeps growing, but nothing ever seems like enough. 3 days later, my phone rings while I'm making dinner, and Eliza's name pops up on the screen. I haven't heard from her in weeks, so I almost don't answer. She sounds nervous when she tells me she finished writing her statement about the package thefts and what happened when we confronted Ivy. She says she'll be available if the court needs to call and verify what she wrote, but she really doesn't want to testify in person if she can avoid it. I thank her about 5 times because even this feels like more than I expected from her. After we hang up, I save her statement in my evidence folder and feel a tiny bit less alone in all this. The next morning, Carter calls me into his office and closes the door behind us. HR finished their investigation into that anonymous complaint about me, and they found it totally made up with no real evidence. He assures me it won't affect my job or my performance reviews, but the complaint itself stays in my file as a record that it happened. I nod and try to look grateful, but inside I'm furious because this is exactly what Ivy wanted. She got to create problems for me at work even though HR saw through it. Carter can tell I'm upset and offers to let me take the rest of the day off, but I decline because sitting at home will just make me spiral. That evening, Stephen posts a notice about a mandatory building meeting to discuss recent security concerns. I know it's about me and Ivy before I even show up. The meeting happens in the community room on the first floor, and almost everyone from our floor is there, plus some people from other floors who apparently have opinions. Stephen tries to moderate, but within 10 minutes, people are yelling. Mrs. Moore from 4C says I brought drama to a peaceful building and questions whether the glitter bomb was taking things too far. Another neighbor I barely know suggests maybe I should just move if I'm having problems. I stand up and defend myself, explaining that Ivy stole from everyone for months, and the glitter bomb was the only way to get proof and get our stuff back. Jim backs me up immediately, and Stephen reminds everyone about the security footage of the package thefts. But I can feel the room split between people who support me and people who think I'm causing trouble. When the meeting ends, I leave feeling completely isolated. Only Jim walks out with me, and Stephen gives me a supportive nod as I pass his office. Back in my apartment, I pull up a rental search website and start looking at other places. I spend 2 hours running numbers on my laptop. Breaking my lease early costs 3 months' rent as a penalty. First and last month at a new place plus security deposit. Moving costs. I'd have to drain my entire emergency fund and probably go into credit card debt. The math is brutal and clear. I'm stuck here for at least 6 more months unless I want to destroy my savings completely. I close my laptop and sit in the dark, feeling trapped in my own home. A week later, Detective Blair calls with actual good news for once. The certified mail got signed for at Ivy's business address, which means the court can officially notify her about the restraining order hearing. The date is set for 3 weeks out. Blair asks me to come to the station so she can prepare me for what to expect. I meet her the next day, and she walks me through the whole process. She emphasizes that I need to focus on the pattern of Ivy's behavior and how it's affecting my safety and daily life. She warns me that Ivy will probably have a lawyer who will try to make it seem like mutual conflict between neighbors. The key is staying calm and factual, not getting emotional or looking like I'm out for revenge. 2 weeks before the hearing, a court document arrives in my mailbox. Ivy filed a response through her lawyer claiming we had a mutual conflict and I'm making things up to harass her. I read through her version of events and my hands start shaking. She makes the glitter bomb sound like a vicious, unprovoked attack. She says I humiliated her publicly and forced her to move out of her home. She completely leaves out all the package thefts and makes herself sound like an innocent victim. There's no mention of the videos or the GPS tracker or her apartment full of stolen packages. I take photos of every page and add them to my binder, then email copies to Detective Blair. The night before the hearing, I can't sleep at all. I sit on my bed with my massive binder spread out around me, reviewing the timeline for the 100th time and practicing what I'll say. Rafaela's advice keeps running through my head about staying calm and factual, not letting Ivy's lawyer make me look emotional or vindictive. I rehearse answers to questions I think they might ask. I go over the photos and the timeline and my incident log until the words blur together. At 4 a.m., I finally give up on sleep and take a shower, then sit at my kitchen table drinking coffee and watching the sky get light outside my window. At the courthouse, I see Ivy for the first time since she moved out 2 months ago. She's standing on the opposite side of the hallway with a woman in a suit who must be her lawyer. Ivy looks completely normal and put together in business casual clothes with her hair done and makeup on. Nothing like the glitter-covered mess I last saw. She doesn't look at me at all, just stands there talking quietly with her lawyer and checking her phone. I sit on a bench with my binder on my lap and try to keep my hands from shaking. Jim texted this morning saying he'd come if I needed him, but I told him not to. This is something I have to do myself. Inside the courtroom, the judge calls our case and we both approach. I present my binder and walk through the timeline, starting with the package thefts and showing the videos of Ivy stealing. I explain about the glitter bomb and why I did it, then move into everything that happened after she moved out. The photos of me through my window, the note, the glitter in my mailbox, the jammed lock, the 3 a.m. door rattling. Ivy's lawyer interrupts several times trying to paint it as mutual harassment between neighbors who had a disagreement. She keeps bringing up the glitter bomb like it's the worst thing that happened in this whole situation. But the judge asks pointed questions about the bedroom window photo and the 3 a.m. incident. He wants to know how Ivy explains those things, and her lawyer stumbles through vague answers about coincidences and misunderstandings. The judge flips through my binder and studies the photos and timeline. The whole thing takes almost an hour. The judge grants a 1-year restraining order requiring Ivy to stay at least 500 feet from me, my home, and my workplace with absolutely no contact of any kind. I feel relief wash over me so strong I almost cry right there in the courtroom. The judge files the order officially and explains the terms to both of us. Ivy will get a copy, and violation of the order is a criminal offense. As we leave the courtroom, Ivy stares at me from across the hall with this cold, empty look that makes my skin crawl. Her lawyer pulls her away toward the exit, but that stare stays with me. I got what I came for, but something about her expression tells me this isn't really over. Outside the courthouse, I walk to my car with the restraining order paperwork clutched in my hand. My legs feel shaky, but but I force myself to stay calm and not look back at where Ivy is standing with her lawyer. I get about 20 feet from the building entrance when I hear footsteps behind me, and my whole body tenses up. I spin around and see Ivy keeping exactly the required distance, but staring right at me with this cold, empty look. Her lawyer is trying to pull her toward the parking lot, but Ivy shakes her off and mouths something at me. I can't hear the words, but I can read her lips clearly. This isn't over. My hands start shaking so bad I almost drop my phone, but I manage to pull it out and open the camera. I take a photo of her standing there, then check the timestamp and write it in my notes app. 2:47 p.m., outside courthouse. Ivy violated spirit of order by approaching and making threatening statement. Her lawyer finally gets her moving and they walk away toward a silver sedan. I stand there for another minute making sure they actually leave before I get in my car. The whole drive home I keep checking my rearview mirror expecting to see that silver sedan following me. 2 days go by without any incidents, and I start to think maybe the restraining order actually scared her off. Then on Thursday morning I walk out to my car in the work parking garage and stop dead. Purple glitter is sprinkled all across my hood in a thick line like someone dumped a whole container. My stomach drops and I immediately take photos from every angle with my phone. The glitter catches the fluorescent lights and sparkles exactly like the stuff from my bomb. I call building security, and they pull up the camera footage right there on a tablet. The video shows a figure in a dark hoodie approaching my car at 6:04 a.m. when the garage was empty. The person walks right up to my hood, dumps something from a small container, then walks away toward the stairwell exit. The build and height look like Ivy, but the hoodie hides the face completely. Security burns me a copy of the footage onto a USB drive, and I head straight to the police station instead of going into work. Detective Blair meets me in the lobby, and we go back to her desk where I show her the photos and the security footage. She watches the video 3 times, then picks up her phone and calls the prosecutor's office. I sit there listening to her explain the situation and use phrases like pattern of obsessive behavior and violation within 48 hours of order being issued. She hangs up and tells me the prosecutor is taking this seriously because Ivy couldn't even make it 2 full days without violating the restraining order. Blair fills out an official violation report and files it electronically while I'm still sitting there. She says the prosecutor will review everything and decide whether to file criminal charges, which could mean jail time if they can prove it was Ivy. I ask how long that will take, and she says probably a few weeks for them to build a case. I drive back to work 3 hours late and have to explain everything to Carter again. The following Tuesday, I come home to find 2 guys installing big metal parcel lockers in the lobby. Steven sees me staring and comes over to explain that each apartment gets a locker with a unique code, and delivery drivers will put packages inside instead of leaving them in the hallway. He says the building approved the expense after everything that happened, and they should be ready to use by next week. I thank him and head upstairs feeling like maybe something good is finally coming from this nightmare. Over the next few days, I notice the change in how neighbors treat me. Mrs. Whiten from 3C stops me in the elevator to say she's glad someone finally did something about the thefts. A younger guy I don't know well nods at me in the lobby and says thanks for pushing for the lockers. Even the people who seemed annoyed at the building meeting are being cautiously friendly now. The tension in the hallways feels lighter somehow. Carter calls me into his office on Friday, and I brace myself for bad news, but instead he says he's approved me to work from home 3 days a week starting next Monday. He explains that given the ongoing security situation, it makes sense to reduce my predictable patterns, and the company can accommodate remote work for my role. I feel this huge wave of relief wash over me. Not having to commute every single day means Ivy will have a harder time tracking my schedule. I thank Carter multiple times and he just nods and says to focus on staying safe. That weekend I actually sleep better knowing my routine is about to become less predictable. The constant hypervigilance has been exhausting, and having more control over my schedule feels like getting a tiny piece of my life back. 3 weeks after the glitter incident, Detective Blair calls to say the prosecutor offered Ivy a plea deal. She can plead guilty to disorderly conduct, complete 40 hours of community service, and attend mandatory counseling sessions, and the restraining order stays in effect for the full year. Blair says Ivy's lawyer accepted the deal yesterday to avoid going to trial where she could face harsher penalties. I ask if this means it's really over, and Blair is quiet for a second before saying the legal part is resolved, but I should stay vigilant. The plea deal doesn't mean Ivy won't try something else, it just means she'll face serious consequences if she does. I hang up feeling relieved, but not exactly safe. I check Ivy's social media that night and find her business pages have been deleted. Her personal profile is still up, but she hasn't posted anything in almost a month. I scroll back through her old posts and see the vague rant about toxic people is gone too. Over the next week, I get 3 friend requests from accounts I don't recognize with generic names and no profile pictures. I block all of them immediately, figuring they might be Ivy trying to keep tabs on me with fake profiles. I also go through and block anyone who was friends with her that I don't personally know. The online harassment that was constant for weeks just stops completely. No more weird texts, no mystery accounts liking my old posts, nothing. My therapy session with Rafaela on Thursday feels different from the previous ones. Instead of talking about safety plans and coping with fear, she wants to focus on rebuilding the parts of my life I've been avoiding. She asks about hobbies I used to enjoy, and friends I haven't seen in months. I realize I've been so consumed by the Ivy situation that I stopped doing basically everything else. She gives me homework to reconnect with at least one friend this week for a normal activity. I text Jim that afternoon and ask if he wants to grab coffee this weekend. We meet at the place on 3rd Street on Saturday morning and talk about normal stuff like his job and a show he's been watching. For the first time in months, I'm having a conversation that isn't about Ivy or restraining orders or security cameras. It feels good, almost normal, like maybe I can have a regular life again. I spend the next week upgrading my apartment security with better cameras that have night vision and motion detection. I replace all the window locks with heavier-duty ones and install motion sensor lights in the hallway right outside my door. The super gives me permission since it's for safety reasons, and the lights are battery-powered. That night I go to bed at 11 p.m. and actually sleep until 5 a.m. without waking up once. 6 hours straight of sleep feels like a miracle after months of jolting awake at every tiny sound. I wake up feeling more rested than I have in forever. Eliza texts me Sunday morning asking if I need help with anything, and I tell her I'm finally ready to pack up all the evidence and documentation. She and Jim come over that afternoon and we spend 3 hours going through everything. The binder with all the photos and timeline and police reports goes into a plastic storage bin. We pack up the extra security camera equipment I don't need anymore and the printed screenshots from Ivy's social media. Jim suggests we set a boundary about not discussing Ivy unless something urgent actually happens. Eliza agrees and says we all need to move forward instead of staying stuck in crisis mode. We seal up the storage bin and I shove it in the back of my closet. Standing in my decluttered apartment with 2 friends who understand what I've been through but won't let me wallow in it forever, I feel lighter than I have in months. 2 weeks later, Steven emails me the lease renewal paperwork, and I stare at the options on my laptop screen for a solid 10 minutes. The 12-month option would save me money with a discount, but my finger hovers over the 6-month box instead. I click it and type in my electronic signature, then hit submit before I can second-guess myself. It's not running away from the building or letting Ivy win. It's giving myself options and a timeline to save up enough money for a security deposit somewhere new if I decide that's what I need. Managed risk beats feeling trapped any day. That same week, I rent a small storage unit across town and load the evidence binder into my car, along with the extra security equipment I don't need anymore. The unit smells like concrete and metal when I unlock it for the first time. I set the binder on a metal shelf in the back corner and stack the camera boxes next to it. Everything stays accessible if I need it, but it's not taking up space in my closet anymore where I see it every morning. Back at my apartment, I realize I've been checking my Ring camera footage every hour out of habit and force myself to delete the app from my phone's home screen. The incident log document stays in my files, but I'm not adding entries daily anymore. My routines start feeling normal instead of like security protocols I have to follow to stay safe. Walking past my doormat today without stopping to check for glitter feels like a small victory. My hand doesn't automatically reach down to brush the fibers looking for purple specks. I just walk inside and lock the door behind me like a regular person coming home from work. I know the restraining order doesn't erase what happened and Ivy's still out there somewhere living her life. But I'm sleeping through the night now and actually living my life again instead of just surviving it one anxious day at a time. What gets me is how she didn't let fear define her forever. She got her life back piece by piece. That's real courage right there. Hit subscribe if you enjoyed this journey from chaos to healing. You guys are what makes this channel special. Wishing you safety and strength, and I'll catch you in the next one.